Learning English can feel overwhelming, but let me tell you a secret. It's not about talent or expensive courses. It's about consistency, smart methods, and a mindset shift. If you've ever felt stuck, frustrated, or embarrassed about your English skills, I understand. I was there too. I couldn't put together a single full sentence without struggling, and every time I tried to speak, my mind went blank. But something happened that changed everything. My failure. That moment of complete defeat was exactly what I needed to push myself forward. I had always dreamed of working for an international company. I had the skills, the passion, and the dedication. Finally, after years of hard work, I got my chance, a job interview with a huge company in the US. I was excited, imagining my future, the salary, the life I would build. But then reality hit me. The interview started, and as soon as the native English speakers began talking, their words blurred together like fast-forwarded audio. I struggled to understand, my thoughts scrambled, and when they asked me to introduce myself, I panicked. The words wouldn't come out. All I could say was, yes, I am, software, I do coding, good, I am very good. The silence that followed crushed me. I didn't get the job, not because I lacked skills, but because I couldn't communicate in English. That day, I realized English wasn't just a language, it was a key. Without it, I was invisible. That night, I made a decision. I would master English, and I would do it fast. No more excuses, no more failed attempts. I wasn't going to waste my time on ineffective methods or expensive classes. I needed something that worked, and I found it. In 5 months, I went from barely speaking to holding fluent conversations. And today, I'll share exactly how I did it. If you follow my journey step by step, you will know how to improve your English efficiently and finally speak with confidence. Let's get started. When I first started learning English, I made the same mistake that most beginners make. I thought I needed more words. I believed if I memorized thousands of vocabulary words, I would magically become fluent. But the truth was, I already knew hundreds of words, yet I still couldn't speak. That's when I realized the key wasn't learning more words. It was learning how to use the words I already knew. For the first 15 days, I focused on mastering simple, everyday sentences. I wrote down 50 essential sentences, things I actually needed to say in daily life. Phrases like, "Hi, how are you? Can you repeat that? I don't understand." And, "I need a coffee, please." Every morning, I read these sentences out loud, not just once, not just twice, but 10 times. At first, my tongue felt slow, my pronunciation awkward. But after 5 days, something changed. These sentences became automatic. My brain stopped translating and the words just came out naturally. The next step was to start speaking English to myself. Every single day, I talked out loud about whatever I was doing. When I was in the shower, I said, "I am taking a shower. The water is hot. I feel relaxed." When I was making breakfast, I said, "I am making eggs. I like eggs. They are easy to cook." At first, I felt silly, but then I realized this was my private classroom. No one could hear me, no one could judge me. And in just 1 week, I noticed something incredible. My brain started thinking in English. To push my speaking further, I practiced 5 sentences a day, but with a twist. Instead of just reading them, I copied them exactly. I listened to native speakers in movies and repeated their sentences 10 times, mimicking their speed, emotion, and pronunciation. I wasn't just practicing words, I was training myself to sound natural. And by the end of the first 15 days, everything started to feel different. I stopped translating. I could say basic sentences without hesitation. And for the first time, I felt confident. But this was just the beginning. Because after those 15 days, I was finally ready to start real conversations. After 15 days of fixing my biggest mistakes, I was finally ready to take the next step. I could say basic sentences without thinking, and I felt more confident. But I knew that wasn't enough. I didn't want to just say short phrases. I wanted to have real conversations. I wanted to understand native speakers without translating every word in my head. I wanted to speak fluently, and that meant I needed to push myself further. So I created a new plan, a plan that would change everything. The first thing I realized was that my brain was too slow when forming sentences. I knew words, but I couldn't put them together quickly. I needed a way to make speaking feel natural. That's when I started using what I call the question-answer method. It's simple but incredibly powerful. Every day, I asked myself a basic question in English, then forced myself to answer immediately without thinking too much. At first, my responses were short and basic. What did you do today? My answer? I worked. But I kept pushing myself to say more. I worked on my project. Then, I worked on my project for 3 hours. Then, I worked on my project for 3 hours, then I took a break. I kept expanding my sentences, adding more details every time. The more I practiced, the faster my brain processed English. I stopped hesitating, and my speaking speed improved dramatically. One of my biggest challenges was pronunciation. Even though I could speak, my accent was still strong, and I didn't sound natural. Native speakers understood me, but something was missing. That's when I started using the echo technique, the best way to improve pronunciation without a teacher. I listened to native speakers in movies, YouTube videos, and podcasts. After each sentence, I paused the audio and repeated it exactly the same way. Same speed, same tone, same emotion. I wasn't just copying words, I was copying the rhythm and natural flow of English. At first, it felt awkward, but after a few weeks, I noticed a huge difference. My pronunciation became clearer, and even native speakers started telling me, "Wow, your English sounds really natural." At this stage, I also knew I had to expand my vocabulary, but I didn't want to make the same mistake I had made before, memorizing long lists of words that I would forget in a week. Instead, I used the story method. Every day, I took 5 new words and created a short story using all of them. Then I read the story out loud 10 times. By using the words in context, I remembered them effortlessly. I didn't just learn words, I learned how to use them in real conversations. After a few weeks of practicing these techniques consistently, something amazing happened. My brain stopped translating words. English started coming naturally. I could think in English without struggling, and my sentences flowed without hesitation. But I wasn't finished yet. I wanted more. And to truly sound natural, I needed to master how native speakers structured their sentences. That was my next challenge. I had built the habit of listening and repeating, but I wanted to push myself even further. That's when I realized something crucial. Just listening and speaking weren't enough. If I didn't understand the grammar and structure of English properly, I would keep making small mistakes that could confuse people. I didn't want that. I wanted to sound natural like a native speaker. So I started paying close attention to how native speakers formed their sentences. Every time I heard a sentence, I didn't just repeat it. I asked myself, why is this sentence structured this way? For example, I had learned in school to say, I am learning English for 5 months, but when I listened to native speakers, they said, I have been learning English for 5 months. That was my first big realization. The English we learn in school is often different from the English people actually speak. I started researching these differences, learning how and when people use different tenses in real conversations. I discovered why native speakers say, I have been learning, instead of I am learning, and I started adjusting the way I spoke. One of my biggest challenges was prepositions. Why do people say on the bus, but in the car? Why do they say at night, but in the morning? These small details made a huge difference, so I kept a notebook where I wrote down confusing prepositions and example sentences. Whenever I was unsure, I looked for answers online or listened to how native speakers use them in context. To take things further, I started writing a daily diary in English. Every night I wrote about my day. At first, my writing was simple. Today I went to work, I was tired, I ate pizza, it was good. but I wanted to improve, so I asked myself, how do native speakers write? I read blogs, books, and news articles, studying how sentences were structured, and then I tried to copy that style in my writing. One technique that really accelerated my learning was shadowing. I found videos of native speakers, put on headphones, and repeated every word immediately after them, matching their speed and pronunciation. I did this every day for at least 20 minutes, and in just a few weeks, my pronunciation improved dramatically. Another trick that helped was watching English movies with subtitles. But instead of just watching passively, I paused after every sentence and repeated it, focusing on pronunciation, tone, and rhythm. Slowly, my English started sounding more natural. At this stage, I understood something vital. English isn't just about words and grammar, it's also about confidence. Many people know English but are afraid to speak. I made a decision. I would not be afraid to make mistakes. I started speaking English whenever I had the chance, at work, at the store, with friends. I spoke even when I wasn't sure, and I noticed something surprising. People understood me, even if I made small mistakes. They didn't laugh at me. This gave me the confidence to keep going. But then I faced my biggest fear, talking to native English speakers. I was terrified they wouldn't understand me or that I would freeze. So I came up with a strategy. I prepared 10 common conversation topics and practiced them every day. How was your day? What do you do for work? What's your favorite food? I practiced answering these questions fluently. Then I took the leap. I joined an online group where people from different countries practiced English. At first, I was nervous, but soon I realized everyone was there to learn, just like me. I made friends from different countries, and we practiced together. This not only improved my English, but also made learning fun. As I reached the final stage of my English learning journey, I felt a new sense of confidence growing inside me. I was no longer the same person who had struggled to speak just months ago. I had transformed myself step by step through consistent effort, practice, and the right mindset. And then I put my progress to the ultimate test. I applied for my dream job again. The moment had arrived. 5 months after failing my first interview, I applied for my dream job again. This time, I wasn't the same person. I wasn't the guy who hesitated, who panicked, who struggled to express himself. I had spent months preparing, transforming my English, and building my confidence. When I walked into that interview, I felt different. I sat in front of the interviewer, ready. They asked me the first question, and instead of freezing, I answered clearly and naturally. The words flowed effortlessly. I was owning it. They weren't just impressed by my language skills. They saw my determination, my persistence, my transformation. A few days later, I got the call. "Jake, congratulations, you got the job." For a second, I couldn't believe it. The same company that rejected me months ago now wanted me. My starting salary was $5,000 a month, more than I had ever imagined earning. I stood there holding my phone, shaking, my eyes full of tears. The first thing I did was call my parents. "Mom, Dad, I did it." My mother started crying. My father, a man who rarely showed emotion, simply said, "We always knew you could." That moment made every struggle, every late night, every moment of frustration worth it. Learning English wasn't just about communication, it was about changing my life. With my first salary, I bought my father a beautiful watch, something he had always wanted but never bought for himself. For my mother, I bought a gold necklace. She had sacrificed so much for me, for our family, and now it was my turn to give back. When I handed them the gifts, they refused at first. "We don't need anything, son," they said. But I shook my head. "No, this is my way of saying thank you. Thank you for believing in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." That was when I truly understood. The pain of discipline is temporary, but the pain of regret lasts forever. Every struggle I faced, every time I felt like giving up, it was all worth it. And now, I want to share the most important lessons I learned so that you too can achieve fluency. Because if I could do it, you can do it too. It doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter how bad you think your English is. What matters is that you start today, right now. I know it's hard. I know it feels impossible sometimes. But trust me, the only thing standing between you and fluency is consistency. Stop doubting yourself. Stop making excuses. Surround yourself with English. Speak, listen, read, write every single day. Make mistakes, learn from them, improve. Because here's the truth, the journey won't be easy, but the reward will be life-changing. Your future self will thank you. If there's one thing I've learned from this journey, it's that fluency isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Too many people wait until they feel ready before they start speaking, but the truth is, you will never feel ready unless you start now. English is not something you memorize, it's something you live. Every single day, you have to immerse yourself in it, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. That means listening, speaking, writing, and thinking in English without making excuses. Some days, I only had 10 minutes. Some days, I could practice for hours. But no matter what, I made sure I did something in English every day because consistency was the key to my success. Mistakes are part of the process, and the moment I stopped fearing them, I started improving faster. Every mistake was a lesson. Every correction was a step forward. I used to think that grammar was something I had to study endlessly, but I realized that grammar comes naturally when you practice enough. Instead of memorizing rules, I paid attention to how native speakers structured their sentences. When I made an error, I corrected myself, and with time, I stopped repeating the same mistakes. Vocabulary was another challenge, but I found a way to learn words without forcing myself to memorize them. I focused on phrases instead of single words. Instead of trying to remember the word happy, I learned full expressions like, I feel so happy today, and that movie made me really happy. Learning words in context made it easier to recall and use them naturally. But the most important lesson of all was mindset. Most people fail to learn English because they believe they can't. They convince themselves that it's too hard, that they're not talented, or that they don't have enough time. That kind of thinking stops progress before it even starts. The moment I changed my mindset, everything else changed with it. I stopped saying I'm bad at English and started saying I'm improving every day. I surrounded myself with English, made it a part of my life, and never gave up. That's why I succeeded. And now I want to tell you this. If I could do it, you can too. No matter where you're starting from, no matter how difficult it feels, fluency is possible for you. You don't need expensive classes. You don't need perfect grammar. You don't need a special talent. You just need consistency, determination, and the willingness to make mistakes and learn from them. Start today. Speak even if you're unsure. Listen even if you don't understand everything. Read, write, immerse yourself in English every chance you get. Because in 6 months, a year, or however long it takes, you will look back and realize that every single effort was worth it. Your journey starts now. Let's do this together.